Hello and welcome to All Elite Morro. Yeah. Really need to work on the start. I never know what to do. I never have anything planned for it. And then I panic, and then I just do something like I just did. Something silly, like a silly goose. Let me get me screen sorted out here. Yeah, that's that sorted. Screens are sorted. Getting quicker at that though. How's everyone doing on this fine Sunday? I'm experimenting with an earlier time, 7:30 instead of 8. And no particular reason, just thought I'd try it out, see what works better. We're still in the early days of this, so we can move things around a bit. Big week in the wrestling world. Big week, one of the biggest weeks ever, I would say. R.I.P. Hulk. Yeah, a bit of a mad one. Um, Channel has busted out quite a lot of Hulk Hogan stuff over the last few days. Shane did a lovely little video. Check it out on Instagram, TikTok, probably Twitter as well, X. So yeah, try and keep the Hulk talk to a minimal today. Um, Lots been said over the last few days. Some great stuff out there on Hulk's career and legacy. But by God, he did have a tremendous career despite the legacy. We'll leave it at that though on the Hulkster. Marked out on the Instagram response. My hot take, and this is a fucking steaming hot take, Mark. Mark's hot take is that Drew McIntyre is overrated. I don't entirely disagree. Now, I think you're probably been a little bit unfair. Drew McIntyre is pretty fucking awesome. I will say one thing though. I do think that his feud with Punk is slightly overrated. Reason being is that I think people, because it was Punk and because it was Drew, people wanted it to be better than it was. So they almost willed it into being better than it was. Um, what I would say is, if you break down that feud, the friendship wrestling stuff, nonsense. The first match at SummerSlam, I thought was terrible. Me and Shane argued about it on our SummerSlam review last year. Didn't think it was good. Uh, then the match, the dog collar match, or it wasn't dog collar, it was one of them strap matches. That was dog shit. And then obviously the blow off was the Hell in a Cell. That was brilliant. That kind of saved the feud in a way. When you need your final match to save the feud, I think it kind of tells you everything you need to know about the level of the feud up to that point. I'd love to hear what other people think though. O'Reilly. I'm going to read it out because I don't care. Hogan wanted to be cremated since being buried didn't work for him, brother. Um, One last thing I'll say on Hogan. I think possibly the most impressive thing is how he went back to when he went back to WWE in 02. Um, he taught all the old politickers a complete lesson in the level of politicking. Like took the title off Triple H, got his win over Shawn Michaels without having to do rematches. Um, he even beat Randy Orton in 06, like when they were really pushing Randy. Mad stuff, mad stuff. And our underscore N80's response on the Instagram today. This is where we're going to start. How AEW progress Hangman story is going to be massive for the company. Totally agree. And that brings us to our first topic. Hangman's use on TV since All In. I find this to be very, very interesting how they're using him on TV at the moment. You've probably, I don't know if you remember, I've said it a few times on this in the past. Workers' placement, talent placement on TV is super important. I've said this about Max in particular. Max gets a lot of the best placements on TV, and all despite that, since All In, has been getting uh, Hangman has been getting the best placement. Okay, if we compare this to his first run in 2021, he won the title at Full Gear and he wrestled twice on TV in the next 2 months. First one being the hour-long draw with Danielson. Second one being the when he beat Danielson. That's like almost 2 full months after Full Gear. And when he was doing his big feud with Adam Cole, him and Cole were kind of relegated to almost like the secondary act or the secondary active in within the company behind Punk and MJF. Whereas this time, if you look at where he's been placed on TV, he's opening the shows, he's closing the shows, he's wrestling every week so far. So next week will be the third week since All In, third Dynamite since All In, and he'll have wrestled on all three. This week was just masterful presentation. He opens the show, he absolutely destroys Utah in 3.5 minutes, and then he closes the show. This is where it got really good for me. Everything was perfect up to that point anyway. So he opens the show at the most prominent spot, and then he closes the show, the second or third most prominent spot. So they're putting him into two positions that are going to that kind of signify to the fan that this is the biggest star. And other things happening throughout the show that there's a level of respect from the roster towards Hangman. They all look up to him. They all want what he has, but they also look up to him and fear him and respect him and all that kind of stuff. But then in the final segment with Mox and the Death Riders out there, how did they present Hangman? He just walks right into the ring. Doesn't give a shit about them. Doesn't show any fear. Lays down his marker. Calls his shot. Mox has challenged him. Gives him the match. But then lays out, I'm the champion now. This is the stipulation. 1v1. Nobody at ringside. Brilliant. And I thought Moxley was brilliant in this as well, because Moxley's been gaslighting the audience for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But here, when he was confronted with Hangman stood in front of him, he maintained eye contact but kept his head bowed. I think, we're going to be moving into a bigger story. I think Hangman beats him next week, and then we move into a bigger story of, not a bigger story, but a larger one down the line of Mox and the Death Riders eventually breaking up. And I think we can see now this thing of Mox is losing Mox will lose the respect of the Death Riders because of his fear of Hangman, that he can't quite. He's trying his best to portray that he's unaffected by it, but he can't because Hangman has this power over him now. I thought the framing of the two of them facing off in the ring at the end, Hangman's lack of fear walking into the wolf's den of Death Riders, walking out unscathed, and the beauty of it as well is he didn't back up the ramp. He exposed his back to them, almost challenging them. Yeah, you want to attack me from behind? Go for it. It's not going to end well for you. And he just walked nonchalantly away with the title wrapped around his waist. I thought the presentation of Hangman on this week's Dynamite was pitch perfect. And again, to reiterate, they're putting him in the key spots, opening shows, closing shows. This is now Hangman's company, and that goes to what R_N was saying about how massive this reign is for the company. And this is his 10th pole reign. This is his legacy reign. This is the one that he's going to be remembered for. He's now a 2-time champion. Quite often champions get the title. It's a case of a lot of time. A champion will get the title, and the idea will be the title will make the man. And I think that's what a lot of Hangman's first reign was, and it didn't really work out that way. But I think Hangman's in a position now, and I think he's confident enough backstage as well that he can not demand how his creative goes, but be listened to on input on how his creative goes. And he seems to have that this new not new, yeah, probably newfound confidence of his position within the company and his position within the eyes of the fan base. And he can be much more active. But this will be his legacy reign. This is now a case of the man making the title rather than the title making the man. And I think we'll see down the line the same with Swerve when he gets his second reign. It'll feel bigger and more centralized and more focused than his first one, even though I did like Swerve's first reign. David Ayers, hello, Mr. Morrow. What's up, Dave? How you doing? Is this a hot take? Christian is better than Edge when not booked by Vince. Do you know what? I don't think that's a hot take. I think a lot of people would agree with that. I just think Christian is probably better than Edge anyway. And to go to Dynamite, Edge is so. Edge really struggles now with his own presentation, whereas Christian is so comfortable and assured in what he does. Edge is like, it feels to me that there's an insecurity about Edge in that he can't fully like get out of his own way and show some like real vulnerability. Everything with Edge feels like acting, you know. Whereas Christian has an element of like, it's not really him, but he's just so confident and assured in it that it comes across much more genuine. Whereas, like, do you feel like when Edge is cutting a promo on AEW, he just feels out of place? And stuff with Hurt Syndicate the other night, again, like Edge is supposed to be a babyface here, but he's soliciting the help of other people to do his bidding against FTR and stuff. It feels very disconnected, and I just think there's a certain thing of Edge doesn't really get it at the moment, and he's struggling to portray his character properly. Um, he's the one guy that still feels like he's in WWE, and he spent nearly all of his career there. It must be hard to do that, and Christian has had, Christian had his long TNA run and stuff, and he's had more runs outside of WWE, and maybe it's just easier for him to adapt in that sense. So yeah, I do wonder. I don't yeah I don't think it's a hot take, David. But I do think it's the correct take. I just think Christian is probably a better all around performer. Again, we spoke about Tony Storm, and this is just to kind of follow up on what I said about Hangman and position within the card. I said, the opening slot is the most important, and then the closing spot is the second or third most important. I think the other one, either second or third, is the top of the hour. That kind of, if it's in American time, 8 to 10 to 9 o'clock slot is the second most important or the third most important on the card. And to see Tony been put in this position with Athena, she's opening the show on that second hour, and she's done that now a couple of times recently, and she's opened shows recently. So really, this is great for exposure in the women's division as well, in that people who are going to be in this position with her on the second most important slot on the show are going to be people like Tina and Billy Starks there the other night. Pretty decent match. Billy Starks still, I know, has a lot of work to do. She's very young. I don't think she's quite there yet in ring. Her character is definitely getting better. Pairing her with Tina has been good, but I think she still has a lot of work to do. Even though a lot of people, within wrestling give her super high praise. I personally still think she has a lot of work to do to get up to probably the level of what her potential is. But yeah, putting Tony in these spots as well is really signifying her role within the company. So I thought this was great too. And then overall, like other things in Dynamite, like I said, I didn't like the Edge stuff. Wasn't a huge fan of the MJF stuff on this card. It's Tony still, Canada is Tony still being a little bit unclear about whether the cash in or the contracts are cash ins. Kind of sounds like it is. Just give us clarity on that. That's what we need as an audience, is clarity. It just makes your storytelling clearer and differentiates you more from your competition. I don't want us to slide back into being WWE 2.0 or WWE Light, because that's not going to work. It's never going to work. You need to be the alternative, separate yourself. What I did also love on this, actually, the tag team tournament thing is going to be great. The brackets weren't out on Wednesday. Fine, whatever. The brackets are out now. Looks juicy. I thought, Juicy Robinson, pun intended, not really. Um, I did think Collision as well had. I thought Austin Gunn was great with Juice Robinson. So yeah, I think and it'll be Austin Gunn and Juice Robinson versus FTR. We've seen separately both Juice Robinson and Austin separately have great chemistry with FTR. So I suspect that'll be a Dynamite match Wednesday, FTR versus Juice and Austin. I think that'll be really good because if you remember, the Guns had quite a few decent matches with FTR, but Juice and Jay White had an unbelievable collision main event with JR there a couple of years ago. With FTR, not JR. JR, not a wrestler. Um, so yeah, and then we get the Young Bucks versus the Outrunners. I suspect the Young Bucks will want to put the Outrunners over. I can't remember the fourth match. It's Brody King and Bandito are against someone. I think they should. I don't think it's time yet to go to another Outrunners versus FTR match. I think it's clear FTR win this tournament. Or maybe they get costed. Maybe they get costed because it's a tournament for a match at Forbidden Door against the Hurt Syndicate. Uh, oh, hey Shane, long time listener, first time commenter. Why should we trust your opinion when you say things like Hulk Hogan didn't have the same cultural impact as El Santo and Ricky Dozan? Um, it's worrying to me if you think he did have the same impact as particularly El Santo. El Santo is not just a celebrity in Mexico, he's a cultural icon. There are murals to him long after his death all over Mexico. There's statues of him, like in town squares and shit. He was the star of over 50 movies for 25 years. He became like a working class symbol of hope throughout desperate times of um, like socio-economic strife in Mexico. Riquitos and El Anto. So yeah, like Hogan never had that cultural reach. He was a mega celebrity, but he wasn't. He doesn't have the cultural impact that El Santo has. Ricky Dozan is slightly different and I think you said it in the WhatsApp group that Ricky Dozan is like a mega sports star kind of thing. Um, but like Ricky Dozan also had the thing of like there was reams and reams and reams of like newspaper articles about Ricky Dawson's private life, and also Ricky Dawson. There, people forget with him as well as he was of Korean descent, living in Japan, uh, in the post-war period, and Koreans weren't treated particularly well in Japan, and Ricky Dawson, in many ways, not changed the perception of Koreans, but became the symbol of hope as well in Korea. So he had like Japan and Korea. He was also a megastar in places like Pakistan and stuff. Um, he did have a global reach in a similar way that Hogan had in the English speaking world. Ricky Dawson had a huge reach in India, Pakistan, Japan, Korea, in the Asian world. So Ricky Dawson and also like Hogan's most watched match ever is that 33 million he got on the main event card versus Andre the Giant. Um, uh, Ricky Dawson's most watched match was against shit. Who was it against? An American in Japan, and it did over 60 million viewers. 60 million, like over half the population of Japan, was watching the Ricky Dawson wrestling match on TV. Whereas there was 30 million, like less than 10% of the US population watched the Under the Giant match with Hogan. And like also the Under the Giant match with Hogan, that was actually considered a ratings failure at the time. Now we look back and think 30 million ratings failure, that's insane. They were actually hoping for more, and it was 30th. It was only the 30th most viewed show on American TV that week. Whereas the Ricky Dawson one was over half the population of the country watched it and held the record for decades. I think it's been broken since, but it held the record for decades. And El Santo, I just don't think there's an argument for Hogan in the same breath as El Santo in terms of his cultural impact in Mexico and the Hispanic, and particularly South America, or Latino America, and that Spanish speaking world there. He's like of a different level that we can't comprehend. Like if we're Irish here, it'd be like in some ways um like an amalgamation of like Roy Keane, um Roy Keane, Killian Murphy, and fucking Michael Collins or something. You know what I mean? Like that's what El Santo was. Like this, like almost mythical figure. Most of the millions were in the stadium. 93 million people filled it out. Lesnar beating the streak was right. My friends hate me for saying that. Shane agrees with you. I agree with you. Shane, you definitely agree with the Undertaker that Brock was the right one to beat the streak. I think you said that in the past. I think Brock was the right one to beat the streak. You think when Brock came back in 2012, he instantly lost to Cena and Triple H. Um, he needed to beat the streak, and then he became the biggest draw the company had for like I don't know, close to 10 years after it. So it was obviously, in hindsight, the right idea. Um, yeah, Shane agrees as well. Lesnar was the one to beat the streak. I don't like people have a different opinion in hindsight that it should have been Bray Wyatt and it should have been CM Punk or whoever. Oh, it shouldn't. Brock was the right guy because look what happened afterwards. Brock became the undisputed uh, biggest draw in the company for several years. And he did need a bit of rehab after the Cena and Triple H matches. They kind of like shit booking out of Vince. You bring him back and have him job to Cena and like he beat the shit out of Cena in that match. Then Cena hits 5 moves and wins. It just made Brock look shit coming back from being UFC champion. But it was like this Vince thing of punishing him for leaving almost. Um, TNA Slammiversary. I know there might be some, what would you call it, contrasting or conflicting opinions here. Shane's fucking with me, he says. Fucking prick. Um, might be some contrasting opinions here, but I think this was a complete fucking shit show for TNA, and they just totally bent over for WWE. And I suppose they're not really in a position to do otherwise. Um, but they had probably their biggest house in American history in the UBS Arena. Their announced total was 7,623, I think, or 13. Well, it was 7,600 something. The previous record was 7,200. So, in all likelihood, they beat their previous North American record. They did over 8,000 in the UK, and I think in Manchester one time. Oh, no, in London. So they didn't beat that, but it's their biggest ever North American crowd. And it's in New York, where Mike Santana's from. And there was a lot of Puerto Rican fans there. And then they have in it, really, I watched this. This is such a shit man event. They have Trick Williams pinning Joe Hendry and then taking the title from the president of the company. This was such a bad look. They also had Jessie Jane winning their women's world title um, against Masha Slamovich. So by the end of the night on TNA's biggest show ever in North America, their two titles end up on NXT wrestlers. And like even the match, the triple threat with Santana, Joe Hendry, and Trick Williams. Trick Williams spent 90% of the match outside, and then did an injury angle with him during the match. Then he comes in and steals the pin, and I just thought it was terrible, terrible, terrible look for TNA. And what I'm hoping TNA's long game is here is that they are eating shit at the minute with the hope that WWE slash TKO help them get a TV deal. And then they'll just, at that stage, once they have their TV deal signed on the dotted line and they're on TV, they can tell TKO, okay, get fucked now, we're taking our titles back and we're doing it our way. But at the minute, it's just a complete disaster. If I was a TNA fan, I'd probably be sick looking at top stars jobbing out to WWE developmental talent. Because Trick Williams has tons of charisma, but he's just not there in the ring. I think that's why they booked the match the way they did. Had him on the outside for most of it, and it basically was 90% a singles match between Santana and Joe Hendry. And if you know me, you know I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Hendry anyway. Joe Hendry said this at WrestleMania when he got squashed by Randy Orton, and people said, "Oh, this is a great WrestleMania moment. It's great exposure." His heat is gone. His heat, like you could see it in the match, there was no reactions to him. He's not even over with the TNA fan base anymore. Um, so anyone who said around WrestleMania that having him job to Randy Orton was a good idea because it gives him exposure, I think we can safely say has been proven wrong now, in that he's just not over anymore. And that was the start of a kill of his, like, the heat he had being killed off. So you end up, and I wonder now, is it going to be the same with Santana? Did they miss the window on that? They're probably going to put a title on him in Lowell, Massachusetts at Bound for Glory in October. But, like, that's in a smaller arena. It's not in his hometown. It's not going to have the same impact. See what I did there? So yeah, I think this is just a bad night overall for TNA. I've never been a fan of TNA WWE partnerships. Feels one-sided, but they'll probably win the titles back at Bound for Glory. Yeah, it does feel one-sided. Look, throughout the history of WWE, they've always done one-sided partnerships. It tells you how they view TNA by the virtue that they're putting them with NXT and not sending main roster stars there. They sent Edge there, but Edge didn't do anything except, like, he had a nice little moment with Leon Slater, who's awesome, by the way. He won the X Division title off Moose. I watched that match as well. That was good. Leon Slater's class, 20 years of age, huge future. But, like, AJ's whole involvement, he's like, it's almost like, yeah, I'm too big of a star for this. And it's not like AJ doing that, but it's the presentation of how WWE send him there. Going, yeah, yeah, you're the big star. You can go, but all you can do is just, like, hold the guy's hand up and pat him on the back. Not that you're going to be involved in a match or an angle, a proper angle or anything like that. We'll leave that for the Trick Williams of the world, who we need to get a bit more seasoning on them, because we tried them on NXT TV and it didn't really pan out because he wasn't quite ready yet, despite the fact that Trick Williams has a shit ton of charisma and is great on the mic. He still, like, has a lot of improvement to do in ring. I hope he does, because he has a lot of personality. He could be, like, a great all around performer if the in ring stuff improves a little bit. Not even like a whole lot, certainly a little bit. And then on NXT TV, they have Undertaker come out and chokeslam him. So he has to go and get chokeslammed by a 60-year-old, again shitting on the TNA title. People are going to tell you, oh yeah, no, it's a rub. It's a rub. He was in the ring with the Undertaker. Getting chokeslammed by a 60-year-old retired wrestler who looked shit in the last couple of years of his career isn't a rub. It never will be. Uh, it just makes it kills the younger talent. And, like, it's the same as having poor Joe Hendry get squashed by Randy Orton at WrestleMania. If they'd done a 10-minute match and Joe Hendry got a little bit of offense in, that's something different, you know? But that's not what happened. And it hurt Joe Hendry, and this kind of shit, if they keep doing it, will hurt Trick Williams as well. And not belting up Mike Santana on the night in his hometown in front of the biggest crowd they've had ever in North America is a mistake as well. Um, and yeah, they'll win it at Bound for Glory, but I wonder, I do think they will win at least one of the titles back at Bound for Glory. But I don't think that's going to be as hyped, and I don't think it's going to be as meaningful, and it's not going to be at their record-breaking crowd, and it's not going to be in his home state. So, you know, it feels pointless to me. I'd like to hear other people's thoughts, but I was looking forward to this. I spoke about this at the end of the All Elite Morro last week, and I was like, Carter was like, I did say the card doesn't look great, but also I thought there was at least going to be this great moment of Mike Santana winning. And, like, when you have that kind of hype, and we spoke about in the build to All In, when AEW had the hype, then they gave us the good feel moment, because it was like, right, we're going to have our biggest crowd ever in North America. We're going to have, uh, and we have a ton of hype around the show, and we could provide a feel good moment for the babyface that we've been pushing recently. And TNA just did the opposite. And then you have the chairman or the president, or whatever the fuck he's gone by, Carlos, whatever his name is, celebrating almost with Trick Williams. What the fuck is going on here, lads? Like, this is nonsense. It's just like, in the history of wrestling, this shit has never worked. Preach it, Nash, yes, don't. TNA fans review bombed the show, so they're clearly not happy. Yeah, and then I feel like NXT fans came along after that and started giving loads of high ratings to the show, because, like, the initial rating on the show on Cage Match was like under a 2, which, like, that is fucking insane. Like, Like what I've seen in the show, I didn't watch the whole show. What I've seen in the show, it wasn't like totally dog shit terrible. Um, yeah, it wasn't good, and it was under a two, and that seemed to me to be the TNA fan base that did that. And then later in the week, it ended up evening out at around a 3 point something. Well, it was still under a four, which is probably closer to what it should have been. But it was the own TNA fan base to me that seemed to review on the show on Cage Match and give it like one of the worst ratings I've ever seen for a pay per view. Like 1.9 on Cage Match is fucking Legends of Wrestling. Remember that show? That's that standard. Like, and this TNA show wasn't the fucking Legends of Wrestling show, which is a notorious shit show. Um, so yeah, I just think what I'm hoping is TNA get a TV deal, and something like that will make them financially stable, and they can just get rid of this NXT shit and go back to being their own company again. Because this isn't going to help them. And we've already seen Jordan Grace go to WWE. I suspect that Joe Hendry will go there at the end of the year when his contract's up. Although with how cold he's gone recently, I don't know if WWE will want him. Imagine that if they didn't take him after everything. Mike Santana's contract's up at the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if WWE fleeced him as well. So in order for TNA to get this TV deal that they're hoping that TKO will help them out with, they're giving up a lot of their talent to WWE to get that in return. So it's a worrying time for TNA because WWE historically, when they partner with someone, they strip that place for parts. And I just don't think they can buy out TNA though, for the simple reason of that court case with MLW a few years ago about monopolies, and I don't think WWE can be seen to buy another American company because the monopoly thing is quite, there's laws against monopolies in the US, even though, under Trump they'll probably be fine. Um, but I don't think they can be seen to buy out TNF for that reason. But their whole plan with this thing is they want more wrestling on TV because their whole plan is we've seen it with Atlanta last week running against All In the three shows is flood the market, flood the market with too much wrestling, and that hurts AEW. So they want TNA to get a TV deal in order to have more wrestling on TV that will be really no competition to WWE, but might provide a little bit of competition to AEW. So their whole idea is flood the market, create fatigue, and then WWE can ride that out because of how big they are. If TV deal happens, that's when they send WWE wrestlers TNA screw over AEW. Impact will probably be on Wednesdays. Wouldn't be surprised if that was the case at all. Would not be surprised. Um, if they can get a Wednesday night slot. We also had that goofball Eric Bischoff saying that if TNA gets a TV deal, they'll be the second promotion in America within 12 months. TNA aren't getting a TV deal of any value worth something that they could be competition to AEW as a second place. Like a successful TV deal for TNA, a super successful TV deal would be like 20 million a year because NXT is getting 25 to 30 million a year. So a successful, very successful if TNA could get 20 million. I would consider that to be a huge success for them anyway. I doubt to get more than that. But like AEW are getting 185 a year. So like they're never going to get anything near that on a TV station like TBS or TNT. But 20 million a year would make them super financially viable and would allow them to get younger talent under better contracts and would really kind of, so if they got a 5 year deal, 20 million a year, or 3 year deal, 20 million a year, that would really kind of solidify the company in the medium term because most TV deals get renewed unless it's a complete shit show in terms of ratings. So I would say that would be considered a major success in around the 20 million mark. Even if they got 10 million, like that still be allow them to sign some up and coming talent to on better terms that they're not getting fleeced. SummerSlam. There's a lot of stuff on this I actually like. Obviously, I hate the Randy Orton Jelly Roll and the Drew McIntyre stuff. I love the Gunter Punk stuff. Not says it all. Yeah, yeah, spot on, Jar. Like it does. Like if no one from TNA is looking like they're not even allowing them to be NXT wrestlers, not even main roster wrestlers. It's very much sending out the signal from WWE that the TNA guys are just below the level of our developmental. And like, if you're a TNA, lifelong TNA fan, is that what you want the perception of your company to be? No, not at all. Um, where do you think TNA will be at the end of next year, end of 2026? Um, Probably in the exact same position they are now. They might have been like cast aside by WWE by that stage. If a TV deal doesn't materialize, they'll kind of lose their value to WWE as a tool in their global war against AEW. So yeah, I don't know, somewhere in around where they were 3 years ago. I just think TNA will keep chugging along forever anyway. They're going 20 years. Like they don't cost a whole lot to run. They can go back to like they don't run loads of house shows or anything. Um, they don't keep too many wrestlers under exclusive long-term contracts, so they're not under any major financial obligations. So yeah, I just think they'll probably be around what they were post-pandemic, pre-pandemic. Um, yeah. So here's the thing I'm confused about with SummerSlam. Right, Sami Zayn carrying Cross, I'm done with that. Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill. Okay, like that would be fine. Like I like Tiffany Stratton. Jade has improved, but this is a big opportunity for her. Roman Reigns, Jey Uso versus Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. This doesn't feel that big. Does it feel big to anyone else? For Roman's match at SummerSlam, Randy Orton, Jelly Roll, Drew, and Logan Paul. I've said what I need to say about that. Utter horseshit. Controversy and Punk. Super excited for that. Really excited for that. Proper excited. I think they could be. I think they could have great chemistry. Punk as the grizzled old man getting beaten down by a monster. Fucking hook that shit to my veins. I do think we're going to see Seth Rollins cashing in here, which will end the show on night one. And then Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez versus Bliss and Flair. The Bliss and Flair stuff has actually been kind of cool on TV. And it's funny that Bliss has kind of humanized Charlotte a little bit. Something that they've really struggled with for years. But look, like if you look at this card here, right? A lot of tags, singles. So like you get three tags, three singles, right? And no real stipulation matches. When you go to the Sunday match, all the singles matches are loaded in together. Now I know not on here, but has since been added to the show. Is the TLC tag match from SmackDown? But in here we have a street fight, a cage match, and a TLC match. So they put all the plunder matches on one night and all the tag matches on the other night. It's really weird. Like the variety, how they're doing this is, I like the booking wise, it makes no sense to me. There should be a plunder match on both nights. There should be a variety of tags on both nights. Um, yeah, I don't understand the mindset of how they've put these two nights together. And also, is it a better card than WrestleMania? Might be. I have said this. I said it last week, and I think I said it to the lads earlier. Solo and Jacob in the cage. I'm kind of looking forward to that. Becky and Lyra feels like it's kind of run its course to me a little bit, but it has been a fucking excellent feud. Naomi, Io, and Rhea, how they got there, like that'll be a good match, but how they got there hasn't been good. Dominik Mysterio versus AJ, that could be really good. Cena versus Cody, they've got a lot of work to do to make up for Mania. I think Cena has found himself a little more in the heel role than he did at Mania. Cody doesn't feel as hot as he did at Mania though, so hopefully they do something there. And we're not going to get Travis Scott this time because he's fallen out with the company. Imagine using a celebrity in one of their biggest matches slash heel moments ever, and then falling out with said celebrity. So now they can, like, you've fucking ruined your WrestleMania main event for a celebrity that you can't use again. It's fucking insane. It says everything you need to know about the priorities of the company and their like pure dick riding obsession with celebrity culture. But all in all, like this could be done great. had they got the variety of matches each night better, move some of these tags over here and move some of this plunder over here, and you have just a much better balance. The TLC match is the Sunday, Shane, yeah. Um, but that's what I find weird. It's the Sunday where the other two plunder matches are, and then all the traditional tags are on one night. I just think like if you're booking that as a balance and you want to create variety on your show, that's a really terrible way to do it. Like do the street fight on Saturday and then the cage and TLC on Sunday, or move the cage match to Saturday and have the street fight and TLC on Sunday, and maybe move, I don't know, one of these three tag matches to the Sunday. Um, yeah, because like there's only in terms of multi-man, and I mean multi-man not in the sense of tag teams, but multi-man is in triple threat or more. You have the triple threat on the Sunday, the women's one, but also the multi-man, multi-team ladder match is also on the Sunday. So I find it really weird how they've constructed these two cards. I think it's like really shittily put together when it was very clear and very easy on how to put these together. But that's fucking WWE. Little update on the G1. It's been really good so far, actually. I didn't see this morning's one, but I have watched everything through night six. These are the updated blocks. So you got Yota Tsuji leading A block and Yoshihashi leading B block. Who the fuck had that? Not me. Because I'm coming 672nd out of 700 people in the prediction league that I'm in. 672nd out of 7 fucking 100. Despite the fact I have Yota Tsuji and Takeshita as my top two picks. I think some of the big stories coming out of that is Oiwa on 6 points. He's really kind of been shown out, having really good matches, and they're really presenting him as potentially a future star, which is nice. They do need to do that. Oleg Bolton getting so many wins. And the big story for me is Drilla Maloney on 6 points out of 4 matches, or 6 points out of 3 matches. B block is 1 day behind. So A block has had 4 matches so far. B block has had 3. Obviously, Gabe Kidd has had to pull out with a knee injury, will miss the rest of the tournament, and 2 of Drilla's points are a forfeit against Gabe Kidd. Um, but yeah, and you had Shota Umino beating Zack Sabre Jr., the champion. So that's probably setting up a future shot before Wrestle Kingdom for Shota. Ren Narita has been getting a lot of wins. I'm not so happy about that. I don't like his work at the moment. Callum Newman has got a couple of wins so far. Taichi has got some big wins. He's won 2 of his 4 matches, but he's gotten his 2 wins have been big wins. So it's been really interesting so far. There hasn't been any that I've seen yet total blowaway matches like you might have got in previous G1s. Like previous G1s, I feel like every second day I was seeing a match going like, oh my god, that's fucking incredible match. Whereas this has just been really solid matches, but also they have been kind of telling good stories with the likes of Ren Narita, Oiwa, Uemura has had some, the young guys, Suji, Oiwa, Uemura are all getting wins. They're starting to maybe 2 years too late, maybe 3 years too late, but they are starting to push that younger generation a bit more. Like Shingo is kind of the older generation. He's lost 2 of his matches so far, and then he goes and he he's lost 2 of his 3 matches so far. So and Drilla, Drilla, another young guy, foreigner to them, not this side of the world, but foreigner in Japan, has won 3 of 3 so far. So they're given what I thought we were going to do with Drilla since his first G1 is that he was going to lose a lot of his early matches, then find his way later. But what I think they've done that's even better than that is they've had him win his first few matches, so he'll feel like more of a threat later, and somebody beating him later in the tournament to maybe qualify for the playoffs will feel like a bigger deal. They booked better. They booked it better than what I had in mind. Same with Yoshihashi. I think he'll probably start to drop off, and we'll see him lose probably 3 of his next 4 matches or something. But he'll still end up, both Drilla and Yoshihashi will end up on good points totals. But yeah, it's been an interesting tournament so far. Not of the in-ring quality of previous years, but they're still telling good stories. And I'm really hoping for Takeshita Suji final. I think that would fucking rock. Um, but if they go with like Oiwa or something, I think that'd be pretty cool as well. To me, Uemura is probably the best in ring of these young guys that they could go with. but he doesn't seem to have the charisma of a Yota Tsuji. But I probably think they might end up going with a Shota Umino versus Yota Tsuji final, in which case I hope we get to catch the Tsuji semi-final at the very least. And we'll come back next week for more on the G1. We'll be coming towards the fucking business stage next week. They've done 7 nights. There's 2 nights off now. And then we're back for the B block on, I think, it's a Tuesday or Wednesday morning. We see Dom showing up in AAA. Issue a challenge for the Mega Campeon Championship, their top title, held by Vikingo. Looks like they're going to do that match at Triplemania. I know it sounds like with AAA that Triplemania is their biggest show of the year, and it is, but there's 3 or 4 triple fucking manias every year, as I learned a few years ago when I bought one of them. And then 2 months later, there was another one. But yeah, it will be pretty cool seeing Dom versus Vikingo in Mexico. I do think there is money to be made out of Dom in Mexico. Uh, but then again, is it another thing like if Dom goes down and wins the Mega Campeon Championship or title or whatever you want to call it? Is that going to be a thing where it's another WWE guy holding one of their subsidiaries' titles again? And that will mean that WWE guys are, because the tag champions here in AAA are the Garces anyway. Um, so you've already got their tag team title, it's on WWE Talent. Their world title could now be going on WWE Talent. The women's title TNA is on WWE Talent. The men's world championship TNA is on WWE Talent. But I do think a Dom run in Mexico would be excellent, and it should really help AAA sell tickets. He's fucking Rey Mysterio's son doing his first big run in Mexico. So like, I actually do think they should put this title on Dom for a while and have him work a lot of shows in Mexico, because Dom is clearly has a lot of potential, but also I think it's clear that Dom needs more reps. But he has top heel potential in WWE in the next 5 years if he gets the reps. And I said this about Bron Breakker as well. There's another guy, top guy potential, but needs reps, and it could be a great way for Dom. Like I always say, like young wrestlers should like work all around the world in as many different styles as possible and get really good. Um, AAA fans have really turned on Vikingo since they were bought out. They turned on Vikingo before they were bought out. They've been turned, like, it's really weird because they wrote off Del Rio now. But Vikingo was working a program with Del Rio, and the fucking AAA fans, Del Rio was supposed to be the heel, but the AAA fans, this just before the buyout, had really turned on Vikingo in support of Del Rio, despite the fact we all know he's a shitty human. But the fan base had just picked him over Vikingo. The problem with Vikingo was he, I think they got really pissed off at him when he started traveling the world working a lot a few years ago while he was supposed to be their next top guy. Their home fan base got a bit pissed off at him. And then when he came back from injury, he was kind of struggling to get back to the level he'd been previously at. Still is struggling a little bit. He works a super hard style and like a lot of flippy stuff and that flippy do stuff, whatever you want to call it. I think he's super exciting, great talent, but he has been struggling post injury. I think that hasn't helped his perception with AAA fans as well. I think Dom will be a major babyface in this match, Triplemania. But I do think if all these other subsidiary titles weren't already on WWE talent, I would say Dom should definitely win this fucking title. But it's a bad look when all the AAA titles gone to WWE talent and fucking nearly all the TNA titles gone to WWE talent. It just looks like they're running over their subsidiaries slash promotional partners. But I do actually think in this case, Dom is the best choice to hold that title because of what David says with AAA fans turning on Vikingo. It'll be better for him to work underneath for a while and rebuild that trust with their fan base, and also have Dom have a big run in Mexico where he shows up. Like he can show up there once a week, or 3 times a month, or twice a month, and like work matches and get like endear himself to the Mexican fan base because like his father is a fucking hero down there. Despite the fact he hasn't really worked there a tremendous amount for most of his career, but his father, like Ray, was in AAA in the early and mid 90s after AAA broke away from EMLL before their CMLL, and kind of formed the Upstart promotion. Um, and Ray, that's where Ray emerged with Conan and these guys. So to have Dom back there, I think would be fucking awesome for a decent run and be great for him and learning new styles, working with new types of people. I think that's everything we had for today. We got through a lot in a pretty short space of time. Do we have any like questions or anything like that? Not Shane trying to fuck with me. Anything coming in on this? What did you think of the earlier start time? We seem to have kind of a similar number of viewers. But yeah, I can do 8. I can do 7:30. What are we looking forward to this week in wrestling? Dynamite, Moxley, Hangman. No interference. That should be good. I actually feel like they should just have Hangman run over him. That'd be really cool if they just had Hangman truck him. But they need to keep Mox a little bit strong still for the Derby feud. But yeah, I've seen people online kind of talking about, oh, this is bad for Mox. I'm like, Mox is fine. Problem with SummerSlam is lack of build for most of the matches. Yep, results will feel meh regardless. Seth doesn't cash in would be more of a surprise at this stage. It actually would. SummerSlam build really needs kick into gear. Like looking at the card, I'm intrigued about a lot of these matches, but what nothing feels hot. Like I think Jer had said it in a comment on a previous video about how fucking like we spoke about here about how they're flooding the market on themselves and they're not giving their big shows time to build or breed. So because Gunter's just coming off the Goldberg thing, he now only has 2 weeks to build his SummerSlam main event with fucking CM Punk. That's like a 5-6 week thing. Like it's not a 2 week build. You can't get that shit super hot in 2 weeks. It's just not how it works. And like yeah, if anyone can do it, it's Punk and Gunter. But like, why? Why are you stamping on your own product to try and hurt AEW? Just do good shit yourselves. You know, with Hogan dying, I think a lot about late 90s WWE or WCW, and one of the big mistakes that Bischoff made was in 98 when they started to lose, they had their 83 weeks. When they started to lose the ratings again to WWE when Stone Cold got mega hot and stuff, they were still doing great viewership and making shitloads of cash. Um, but Bischoff's idea was, well, we're not number one, so we must be shy. They were still doing like 3 million viewers in a week. Um, and he crashed and burned despite the fact the company was profitable. And all he had to do there was tell some good stories and maintain what you had. Instead, he just like did the shittest booking, like hot shot at everything. It was a constant stream of nonsense, and they ran off the remaining fans they had. And when WCW died, 3 million people basically, we can see that from where Raw's figures went afterwards. 3 million people turned off wrestling and never came back. And I think WWE's problem here is they're actually doing now what WCW did in '98, which was panic about what the other company were doing and try so much to counter program that they end up hurting their own product immensely. Um, and we're seeing like a lot of people used to say about WCW '98 still had some good shit, like WWE 2025 still has some good shit, but they're actually stepping on their own product so much. The closest comparison I can think of is WCW 1988. Um, and nothing feels organic. Everything feels rushed. Everything feels like it's designed as some sort of like counter program. And the last time we seen that was WCW in '98, and by mid '99 they were fucked, and there was no coming back from where they were in mid '99. And I think what AEW have done great recently is just accepted where they are and said, well, we're making good money. We're clearly the number 2 promotion. Let's just concentrate on ourselves and tell good stories. And WWE had been doing that in 2023, start of 2024. Um, so what matches I watched this week? Okay, I had a bumper week of watching matches, as you know, Shane. So this week, I obviously watched. I won't talk about any like new wrestling I watched this week. I went back and watched quite a lot of old wrestling. I watched Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior from WrestleMania 6, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Uh, I forgot how hot the fan base was back then. It was insane. And then I watched. So there's a channel on YouTube. I'm really hesitant about saying it out loud in case it gets taken down because I'm sure it can't be non-copyright. It's called Classic Puro 83, which has a shitload going back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, all Japan. Um, so on that, I watched a tremendous fucking all-time classic six-man tag. Uh, Kawada, Kobashi, and Misawa versus Jumbo Ceruto, Akira Taue, and Fuji. And I really mean it when I said this is it might be the best six-man tag match I've ever seen in my life. It was an all-time fucking classic. It was 45, 50 minutes long or something. And I was lifted out of my seat, no joke, 20 times. So, Misawa, Kawada, and Kobashi versus Fuji, Saruta, and Taue, six-man tag, August 1993. A hell of a match. Another match I watched this week, I think it was the 93 Tag League as well. No, it was after Kawada broke away from Misawa. So it was Kawada and Taue versus. So you had the Holy Demon Army versus Super Generation Army. So Kawada and Taue versus Kobashi and Misawa, and again one of the greatest tag matches you will ever see in your life. So yeah, I've been on a real All Japan buzz. I watched from what year was it? 83, August 83. Um, Bruiser Brody versus Jumbo Tsuruta. Again, super hot match, bloody match. It's fucking Bruiser and ends in a count out, but a really well done count out. Now, it's not one of the best matches I've ever seen by any means, but it was just a really fun, exciting match. Io Sky match this week from Stardom. Stardom Io Sky is a fucking beast. And Kairi Sane as well, another beast. Stardom are a company who constantly lose their top talent and constantly are able to get the next generation hot instantly and ready for the top. Like they lost Asuka, Kairi Sen, and Io Sky all within the space of a couple of years. They're three top stars, and I think there was one more they lost from the same time. And instantly had like Azumi, fucking Starlight Kid, uh, Iwatani, like Watanabe already straight like almost instantly, and now like Saya Kamatani, Shuri and Sari are all there doing like these are all 23, 24 year olds who look like they're doing this shit 20 years. I don't know if there's a company in wrestling quite like Stardom who can consistently make new talent, like get new talent over to a huge degree, time after time after time after time. So impressive. Okay, good chats, everybody. Lots of stuff coming up on the channel. Hulk Hogan video. Me, Shane, the two Johns did a Hulk Hogan video podcast this week. That's out on the channel now. Uh, Shane has his little tribute to Hulk Hogan now, like 6 minute, very very well put together video. Check that out. That was really cool. Also OTT Insider from this week featuring Shane O'Keefe on the mic, along with Edward Stewart Tate and Joe Cabret, and a surprise guest, a very cool surprise guest. That's out on the channel now as well. And loads of more things coming up. I'm looking at doing a gaming series, 10-part series, rebooking WCW 1992 on the game TEWIX. A couple of weeks away from that yet, but we're nearly there. WWE's War Games suck. Yes. Yeah, fucking give us the 5v5 matches, like. I've always thought that whatever was main eventing, let's say you do the Survivor Series,
traditional Survivor Series match, 5v5, right? Whoever gets the pin in the main event should be the 30th entrant into the Royal Rumble. So like you have fucking Drew McIntyre's team versus Sami Zayn's team. And Sami gets the pin to knock out the last guy. Sami gets the 30th spot at the Royal Rumble. I always thought that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I miss traditional Survivor Series matches. The elimination factor, the fact that you could get like somebody overcoming a 1v2 and becoming a sole survivor, all that stuff. Like, they were just, and then you get these mad combinations of teams, um, and not like Raw versus SmackDown shit. Like, just like random 5v5 ones, you know? Um, WWE War Games to AEW. Yeah, none of the AEW Blood and Guts matches have really hit. There was one of them I loved. I can't remember which one. Longest person in the Rumble should be last out. Yeah, yeah, have something for that because they make a big deal every year about the Iron Man of the Rumble. Fucking let them be the last one out in the chamber. Shit like that, like, gives everything meaning. Like, WWE's just so often like they've become like this really weird numbers stats company. The Royal Rumble has just become a fucking statistician workshop, like. Third spot would be Class 2003 with Austin's GM role. On the line was Class as well. That was deadly as well. Yeah, that was deadly actually. Um, like yeah, just have some sort of stakes, and pay off things. Like last year's Royal Rumble, I was watching it. This year's Royal Rumble. And we'd just been at the local Rumble, OTT's local Rumble in Dublin, which was a fucking great show. I came home and then watched the WWE Royal Rumble, and it's just I know Pat Patterson's dead, and he used to lay out the matches. Um, Whoever's doing it obviously doesn't have the flair for it, not the Ric Flair for it, but the flair for it that Pat Patterson had. So that's unfortunate. So they're not as well laid out anymore. But also they just it's just Michael Cole screaming numbers and stats at me for an hour, and I could do without that on my wrestling show. Like I do like stats, which is weird. I love when things get that like bit of sports presentation, but it's so incessant now, and but none of it ever seems to mean anything because like who cares if you're in the rumble for 62 minutes? You don't get anything for it. Um, so yeah, like if that became the last out in the chamber, that'd be cool. Okay, that'll do us for this week, everybody. Thank you. We'll be back next week. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for all the comments. David, Jer, Shaz, Dumph, line up the usual suspects. Appreciate you all. See ya same time next week. All Elite Morro. Out. Let's press it twice. Out.